Okay, so the name of the program tonight, as you already know, is called Owen Asks, and we're going to get started here. Second here.
So how do you want to format this as far as participation?
So participation is going to work like this. It's called Owen Asks for a reason, because I am going to be putting up certain images or questions that I have on the screen. And what we're going to try to do is get as much audience participation as possible. This is a way to get the at-home people involved as well as the people here. And Alan's going to be moderating the chat. So if you have an answer to a question, if you want to add something, just raise your hand or bring it up in the chat, and Alan's going to monitor that. If I ask the question, or actually I'm going to be Owen, if Owen asks a question, you're going to see a little icon of Owen pop up with a particular picture. Now, I might ask some trivia. I might ask for some information about a picture that I have. So it's a once, we've never tried this before, but the goal is to try to get everybody involved as much as we can, rather than just hear me giving an hour presentation and droning on. It's about hearing your voices and having you guys part of the society and speaking up, okay?
So we've already got a hand raised. Vernon Kelly, so I'm going to allow you to talk. Do you have any comments? I think you know. But if you raise your hand in the chat, I'll do my best to try to unmute you and allow you to speak, and then you can make any comments as necessary. He's still muted, so all right, I'm going to mute him back again.
Okay. Okay, so as Doug likes to do, he likes to dedicate a program to certain people, persons, etc. So tonight, I'd like to dedicate the program to two of our current and standing O&W members, Ray Kelly, who's our past secretary, and Carl Olson. Both of them have held multiple positions throughout their many years of service volunteering to the society. Notably, Ray is former secretary. When I attended any O&W meeting, there was maybe one time that I can recall where Ray actually missed a meeting, but he was pretty much here in person every single time. And as sales director, he most recently met me over at the archives to get my latest copy of To the Mountains by Rail by Wakefield. So I'd like everybody to thank Ray if you see him tonight here. And of course, you can't forget our very own Carl Olson. Carl's involvement with publications and past performances of Owen Says, which for the online community might not know what Owen Says is. Carl would get up and ask trivia questions, and everybody would try to come up with the correct answer. As I said in my last speech here, I never did very well at Owen Says. So this inspired me to give today's presentation with Carl's permission to modify a little bit. So again, thank you to both of you for all your years of dedication, and special thanks as well goes to former program chairman Doug Barbario. He has passed the torch on to me and has been a huge help and a motivator for me to step up at the plate, as he says. So now let's have a little fun and silence your cell phones, please. So what is Owen Asks, you're wondering? Well, it's trivia intermixed with trained photos to encourage in-person and at-home participation to make this a unique program that helps me identify several mystery photographs for which I have no knowledge of who the photographer was or where locations were. I'll get into that in a moment. And it tests your knowledge of the New York and Oswego Midland, as well as the New York, Ontario, and Western. As Doug also always reminds me, keep it simple, stupid. So nothing is beyond anybody's knowledge here. I think we're going to get answers for just about everything. I'm the new kid in town when it comes to the O&W, so I might put a picture up there on the screen that you guys might think, what is this guy? He doesn't know this station. I don't. So I'll go into that in a little bit too. It's followed by a tribute to the employees of the railroad and the final years and days prior to abandonment. And we're not going to get into the survey tonight. We were going to do that during the intermission, but we'll leave that for another day. And to close it out, hopefully the folks at home can be able to view the video. I know Alan had a problem with Charlie's video, but that's going to be the closing thing. And as Ray usually uses the term, maybe a few trinkets here and there. So these were some of the trinkets that I discovered when I was doing some research for the program. And that is, of course, Rock Tavern up there in the upper left-hand corner. And these are actually from the Rocklet Post Office Department, which I'll explain in a second. So many of the photographs, not all, but many of the photographs come from the collection of the late Fred Lewis. And no, that is not the former O&W's foreman of engines, Fred Lewis. Sadly, Fred passed away before Wakefield published To the Mountains by Rail. But in doing my research, a little bit of background information. Some of you people know that I showed pictures from the Russell Begg collection. Russell Begg was married to Doris Lewis, who is the widow of both Russell and Fred. Fred was her first husband. And from what I can understand, Fred goes back to the beginnings of the society. He was one of the original members because in his collection of memorabilia, paperwork, pictures, etc., I found the very first issue of the Observer in his collection. So I have a whole bunch of that stuff at home. And as I said, I was doing this stuff. I found more stuff that I have basically about 3 Xerox size boxes of just stuff that came from Fred's collection. Everything in there as far as the newspaper article about local railroad history, United States railroad topics, they kept it all. So I have my own archives at home from just the Fred Lewis collection. Getting back to that, I did find a lot of conversations, handwritten letters between both Manville Wakefield as well as Bill Helmer with Fred, and it goes back to 1960. So even before the society was formed, Fred had a dairy farm in Rock Tavern, and it was later displaced when the MTA took over for Stewart Air Force Base. They actually tore down the house, and he was forced to leave, actually in Russell's time. At this point, Fred had already passed away. But Fred was a dairy farmer, and unfortunately, he came down with a rare respiratory disease. And by 1970, before Wakefield came out with his book, he had passed away already. So I give a lot of credit to both Fred for keeping all the stuff and for Doris, his wife, for passing it on to me. His grandfather was Rock Tavern's postmaster, and he pursued a lot of leads on when the actual tavern at Rock Tavern met its demise. He had an aggressive letter writing campaign to just about any newspaper in the state and locally to find out what actually happened with the Rock Tavern when it was with the Rock Tavern what its fate was. He only knew it from basically from stories grown up as a kid from his parents about the actual Rock Tavern. So this is an actual letter from Bill Helmer, dated April 2nd, 1960. This is the original. This is the first thing that I could find as far as way back when. So I'm going to read it for you guys that can't see it. Dear Mr. Lewis, thank you for your kind letter. You can never bore me on our favorite topic, the O&W. I'm still collecting every scrap of information about the railroad, and your memories are most valuable to me. I grew up with the O&W, and as I grew stronger, the railroad grew weaker. Whenever I could be near the state road crossing at Oneida Castle for the northbound milk or for the southbound freight, each night I was absolutely entranced by the sight of these handsome little engines. The Central was much too modest. Of course, they talk about the New York Central, much too modest and impersonal to be interesting. I was pulling for the O&W right up to the last. Now she's gone, and there is something lacking in me because of it. If you ever think of any other experiences or run across materials that would help me fill in the history of the O&W, please write. I'll be glad to hear from you again anytime. Sincerely, William Helmer. This one's going to be a little bit harder, but again, this is from Wakefield. Dear Fred, I'm having a hard time reading this myself. Let me put my glasses on.
Read it on the screen, maybe.
Yeah, I have decided to attempt to put together a book on the O&W Railway and the Sullivan County hotel industry. This is dated October 14th of 1966. Prints from some of those O&W negatives would be helpful. Of course, he's talking about back then they would share negatives much like we would share images on Facebook, only they would do it through snail mail. Also, any shots you might have that I am not aware of. Keep track of your material costs and time since I'm applying for a modest grant and aid to help cover some of my out-of-pocket costs. Let me know if you have any suggestions regarding other sources of pictures. Best personal regards. So what makes this interesting is that the current generation, everything's on instant gratification through email, through Facebook, all the digital platforms. Back then, you have to realize that if they want information, they would have to put it in the mail, wait for a response, and it was a continuous back and forth, which to me, it's kind of romantic to see this correspondence between two of the greats that wrote the books on the O&W. So for me, finding this stuff kind of really fit well with the program. Of course, this is Rock Cavern. Ray, yeah. Ray's still here.
Yeah.
What are we looking at, Ray?
Looking at the creaming.
You were looking at the creaming. Okay.
Building on the left was a feed store. Now it's an abandoned house.
Okay. How about this building back here?
That might have, I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's the station.
That's the station. Okay.
And they put the bridge and they moved it across the tracks.
Okay. Thank you, Ray. So if this is the creamery, what are we doing here?
Got the vats.
Could that have been the ice house?
The ice house. No, it's got the vats there. I think they put milk cans in.
So Doug thinks it's got the vats to put the milk cans in. Okay. So this is how we start Owen Ask. I ask and you guys thankfully respond.
Eric, can you go to the previous picture?
We got it raised.
Previous, yep. We got a raised hand?
Yeah.
And the part on the right, I showed this to Ed Chris, late Ed Chris, and he said that might have been a work train and the guys lived in it.
Those do look like camp cars, and they're all
Okay.
they're all stenciled O&W.
Okay, so Ray's comment was that could have been a work train on the right-hand side. That could be camp cars.
They got the laundry out.
Yeah, because you wouldn't have seen that many O&W stenciled box cars in one place unless it was something like
that.
box cars for a camp train.
Yep. Okay. Good.
You know the year roughly?
I don't know the years. That's the problem with a lot of the stuff that came.
It's definitely early 1900s.
Yeah, where all these negatives came from, I don't know. They were in multiple different boxes labeled O&W. So hopefully everything I show you is O&W. Again, I don't know the source. I don't know the dates on a lot of them and don't know who took them. But back then there was a lot of trading going on, through the mail. So
we have them in the archives.
you have them in the archives. Okay.
They may have more information.
Okay.
There was a question if they built the creamery to process the raw milk into cheese. This was mainly to condense the milk so it can be sold at market.
I think so. Yeah. Yep.
Eric, I believe that's post 1905.
Post 1905.
Double track.
Okay.
And he's standing on the new bridge. You don't see the bridge.
Correct. Okay. Great. Thanks, sir.
Excuse
And
me,
this.
excuse
Move
me.
this down.
Hold
I
on a
believe
second.
I was recognized with a hand raised. Could you go back a picture, please? Could you go back one frame, please?
Yep. My volume's up.
All right.
Okay.
I got Gerald online. I think he's trying to talk. I don't know if it's coming through.
Correct. That's correct. I am trying to speak over you, several other people. If you would
there
go
we go.
back one frame, there was a question asked about that picture, and I believe I have an answer for you.
All right.
Previous. This one?
There you go. The question was, what is this in the foreground? And that is the foundation for a creamery. Those are pits in which the processed or pasteurized milk was stored in cans and iced. And the processing equipment was in the large area that's enclosed with a 3-foot-high wall. Building in the back, the building in the back that's in the dark building directly behind it was in fact a creamery, an ice house. All right. And some similar pictures appear in Bob Mahowski's book about milk service on the O&W. There are some similar photos at other locations.
Okay.
So that's all I had to add to what was going on.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay. What's this? Okay, so before, this is the only picture that I've come across so far of the Rock Tavern. Ray, have you seen this yet?
I've seen this, but I was told by the New Windsor historian that the Rock Tavern was a rock tavern.
Okay, you can't see it because I have this bar down here, but it actually, take my word for it, it says Rock Tavern down here. That's what it's labeled as.
Yeah, the town and that's the name of the building.
Yeah. You want to try some?
What I have on draft.
Here we go. That's better.
Yeah.
So it's labeled the Rock Tavern. It's the only picture I found of it. So in Fred's honor, we'll make believe it's
Do
the
they
Rock
have
Tavern.
artisan craft brewery, like
I don't know what they have.
finely aged?
Okay, a few more trinkets that I found. And you guys can see this. This is a loaded car running slip, which can anybody explain what a loaded car running slip is? Is that like a waybill? Is anybody online aware of what this would actually be described as? It's billed from Livingston Manor to Rock Tavern, and the date is April 15th, tax day of 1916.
I wonder if this was the bill that they would actually staple to that wooden post on the side of the boxcars. You'd have a waybill that would stay with the crew, and then you have a waybill that would actually get stamped onto the car. I wonder if this is the one that actually got stamped on the side of the car.
Okay.
And then at the end of the trip, that's what they do. They take it to a processing yard and they'd compare notes. You'd have the crew's paperwork, and then you'd have the paperwork that's actually on the cars from out there switching. I do the inbound processing. I'll collect all the waybills off the cars when I lead off the cars and inspect them at major processing yards.
98, 99, it's the maintenance away.
I got another raised hand here. Gerald, you got something else?
Yes, if you look at the top on both cars, on both cards, it says R98, R99. My recollection is that the R numbers were maintenance of way cars
Yep.
on the O&W. Underneath, when you look at contents, it says living car. And in the context of these being, in the
Yep.
context of these being M&W cars, they may have been camp cars for M&W crews on the road.
And Jeff Gabriel says the same thing. It says it's a living car. So camp
Right.
car would make sense.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Under weight, it listed M's, what are M's?
What are M's? Yes, 36M.
36 and 10 is 46 total. What are M's?
Weight of car and weight of contents, 36 and 10 M's. In Roman numerals is an M
Thousand.
thousand,
Yeah,
right?
Roman numerals, 1,000.
So 46,000 pounds,
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
23 tons.
Total weight.
David Frainer online says the previous photo of Rock Tavern building shows that it had been reconstructed. It had been a reconstructed annex, another bay, very common at the time. So
Great. Okay, there's another one, running slip. Billed to Rock Tavern, this is the one on the left. Contents of feed from, looks like it says Joe. But cursive handwriting is not my. But down at the bottom, what makes it interesting is it says Ice Car at Rocklet, which was prior name for Rock Tavern. And then over on the right-hand side, again, we have 31 M's, 18 M's. Billed from Oneida to Rock Tavern, April 10th, 1960. Now, what's interesting is I don't have a copy of it up here, but in one of the letters from Wakefield to Fred, it said, yes, let's go check out the contents of the Rock Tavern Depot. That sounds exciting. So I'm assuming that a lot of this stuff, including this, which I have probably about 100 of these in a stack of various condition, they might have gone up in the attic of the Rock Tavern station and helped themselves. So, and these are dated August 1st, 1900. The 8 is crossed out and the 9 is not.
they didn't order the new forms in time, I guess.
Nope. but over on the right-hand corner, it says number of cans 4, number of cans 6, and number of cans, I believe it's 5.
Gerald online, you can speak. I've got you unmuted.
Yeah, okay. If you'd go back to the previous slide, please.
Sure. This one?
Yes. Your question on the weights, as as we have been progressing here. If you look at the weight where it says 18M on the right-hand side.
Yep.
Okay. And if you go to the very last line, it says net weight, 18,000. Answers your question as to what the M means.
Okay,
All right.
got it.
And also, if you're considering the fact that there was a need for a car, I don't know where on here it talked about icing the car.
Okay, over on the left-hand side in the bluish one, about halfway down, a little bit more than half, where it says ice car at Rocklet.
It says feed.
Yeah, why didn't they need
Oh,
to
I
ice
see.
feed?
Okay. I didn't realize the ice car was printed in there. And there again, you had the ice houses we just saw in that previous photo I was talking about, right behind the creamery. So it makes sense that that would be a place to be able to ice the car.
Okay, correct. The only thing is under contents, it says feed.
Understand. Don't know why they wanted to ice the feed, but I can't answer
Dave,
that
you
one
can-
for you, man.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, you know why that was changed?
No, Ray, I don't.
Near Rocklet is Beatty Road. In the late 1890s and early 1900s, Beatty's were a prominent family. Rock Pattern. Beatty's sisters were also members of the Women's Temperance Question Union. They were not partial to have their male sex with Rock Pattern. They had to change the Rocklet. After a while, they turned back.
That's funny.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ray.
Dave online, you can speak. I got you unmuted.
Yeah, my question was with regard to that stamp, was that something that was either postal or some kind of a tax stamp? And is there any way
Down the
of
bottom.
blowing it up so we can see what the nature of it is? Thank you.
Next slide.
On the
This is
next
in
slide?
this is in the
Oh,
previous,
next slide just
in the
stamped up.
previous. Yeah, that.
This is this
that a
one talking
postage
about the
stamp?
milk cans.
It looks like a postal cancel on it.
I don't know.
So this was, or was it a
Cancel in a
postal
postage
service or
stamp,
was
yeah.
it a railroad? Postal service.
I wonder if they received receipt of those milk, send those receipts back to the farmers that delivered the milk to them.
Well, yeah, and that's possible because I noticed that the stamp actually, it seems to be inverted, but it says something tavern on the top left one. You see that? It says tavern upside down.
Maybe
So
we'll
it
put it on
must
the
have been
Ontario
canceled
Express.
at the post office
I
or
would
at
say
the,
this is a postcard.
okay. But I'm
I'll
fascinated
have to
by
go
that.
back and look at it, get it to Ronnie, and we can put it up. The Ontario Express.
Are they paper or card?
These are paper. These are very flimsy, thin paper. And in fact, some of them, like you can see on the corners of the middle one, are starting to fall apart. So they're in various states of, conditions.
Yeah, these are wonderful documents.
All right,
because
moving
they
forward.
Really, they
Uh,
really reach into the heart of the
thank you.
O&W. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so as I said, this is Volume 1, Number 1, November 1964 of the Observer. I won't read the entire left. I'm not going to read anything on the left-hand side, but I want to bring up a couple points on the right-hand side. The Cornwall to Firthcliffe station of the O&W has been abandoned and was torn up this summer. when the carpet factory at Firth Cliff closed. The trestle over Moonda Creek, just west of the Firth Cliff station, was torn down last year, and the Firth Cliff station burned this past winter. You're going to see coming up soon that I have pictures of the Firth Cliff station, but I never had a date on them, and I always assumed they were later than 64. So this kind of puts an answer to my question on when those pictures were taken. The new extension of Route 17 is going to pass through Roscoe on the O&W roadbed, obliterating the Roscoe station in the process. The highway will continue along the Delaware over the right-of-way. And the weighing station at the north end of the main yard in Middletown is still extant. Most of the mechanism is intact, although it is rusted solid. And finally, the Erie-Lackawanna held a hearing in Port Jervis on the abandonment of the old main line from Howells Junction to Otisville. Also on October 23rd, 1964, the Erie-Lackawanna will discontinue trains number 56 and number 61 from Suffern to Port Jervis. And we know the schedule today has number 56 as well as number 61.
And that abandonment of the old main line, they're talking about the stub-ended.
They're talking, yep.
Yeah, because they abandoned the entire route in 53 with the exception of to Otisville to service the local.
Correct.
Yep.
Right. Here's an editorial. With the beginning of the new year, the chapter must look forward to an expansion of its importance in rail fan circles. We have seen our membership grow larger and larger. We have had railroad historian Mr. Ron Zeal address one of our meetings. We have begun a collection of railroad memorabilia, and we have seen the beginnings of our newsletter. These are all wonderful accomplishments for a new organization, which continues to this day. Let's see, is there anything else?
So Jim Smith online made an interesting point about the previous with the stamps. Said that the War Revenue Act of 1898 authorized the tax on a wide range of goods and services, including amusements, liquor, tea, and tobacco, and required tax stamps on some business transactions, such as bills of lading, manifests, and marine insurance. So that could be what we were looking at.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Going on here, to continue this growth, there can be no better method than our gathering O&W equipment. We still have a choice of old coaches, diesels, cabooses, and even the old Sykes rail car number 801. It is unfortunate that there are only 3 pieces of O&W rolling stock on exhibition in the entire world. At Arcade, New Attica, the only other pieces of rolling stock on exhibition are 2 cabooses. One of these at the Wallkill Valley Miniature Railroad is in good condition, but the other, that of the Empire State Railway Museum, has had its interior destroyed to make way for a kitchen. The fact that only 3 of these cars survive should be an added incentive for us to acquire a rolling stock museum of our own. We must
So I have a picture right here. They look
Of the
3.
That looked like a Y2 on the Observer.
No, it's a Y1. And the reason it's a Y1 is because it was the only one built with a Franklin trailing. It's an experiment. It was a Y, it was Y1, and everything else. There was a lot of Ys, and it was just one Y1, the Franklin trailing truck.
So I've got the slideshow here. Yep, I'm gonna share my screen. So the main one went offline, so we're gonna add. We're gonna go to the backup now. Share screen. You can keep sharing your PowerPoint, and I'll follow along with you.
I just gotta get rid of this.
Mute yourself. Oh, you're not on Zoom, so it doesn't matter. All right.
Maybe use both.
All right.
Okay, so this next shot is not.
Can't hear you very well. Hold on. Let me swap this out. You unplug that? Yeah. Give us a second with the audio.
No, it's been terrible.
All right.
That is on the Erie.
Yeah.
That is just north of Suffern at Ramapo.
All right. Ronnie, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly now.
All right. Very good.
Okay. So you might ask yourself, we're good, right?
Yep, we're all
Okay,
good.
you might ask yourself, what is an O&W train doing on the Erie down at Ramapo? Anybody want to venture a guess?
There's a wreck at full switch and the train got rerouted. That's wrong.
Kind of like this wreck, Doug?
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of like this wreck.
With the naval crook.
Okay, Doug is correct. This was train number 4 from Livingston Manor that derailed. I'm having a blank here. Full switch. And what they did is they relayed the track that was torn up previously on the ties that were still there to make a kind of, what do you call it, Alan? A shoe fly around it? Shoe fly around it until, they could get everything back, and they actually left that track in service up until the very end. Correct, Ray?
Yes.
Yes.
It shows up in some pictures that these are
New Haven train.
That is a New Haven crane out of Maybrook. Yep.
Yeah, testing the conversion of 6-foot gauge to standard, I guess you could call it. Thank you, Howard.
And these come from Ray Kelly as well. This was what year, Ray? Early 2000s? Okay. And we're looking down
We're looking towards Shore Road, so it'd be north.
we're looking north towards Shore Road. Okay, our first actual official when Owen shows up here. My first question is, summer passenger travel into the Catskills was fast approaching bonanza proportions in blank. Almost blank vacationers stepped off the green wooden coaches into the refreshing atmosphere of wooded mountain slopes. Anyone care to take a guess?
Guess the year first.
Yeah. The year would be first, and the quantity is the second.
I'm gonna go 1912.
Here we go, 1912. Okay, close.
1919.
1919, 1912 from the Helds.
I think it's before World War One.
Okay. Anybody want to take a guess at how many vacationers stepped off the green wooden coaches?
3.
3. Okay. So the answer is 1920, so you're both close. And 2 million vacationers stepped off the green wooden coaches. Now, my information was taken from both books, so that's give credit where credit is due. That was my sources for most of the questions as I went back and reviewed the Bibles, as we'll call them. 2 million.
What's ridership of New Jersey Transit? I mean, it's
Don't know, but this is the peak. I think this came right out of Wakefield's book. Actually, this is one of the later ones that I put in.
Yeah, it makes sense in that.
Yep. So thank you, Owen. In fact, in 1924, 15-year-old passenger cars were purchased from the Detroit and Mackinac, and 2 additional parlor cars were acquired from the St. Louis and Southwestern. What were they named? Anybody care to take a guess what the 2 coaches were named? Real easy. Going once, twice. Anybody at home?
I don't see anybody with their.
Okay, they were the Ulster and the Orange.
Okay.
Real simple. All right. Okay, so going through the pictures, this is Burnside. And a lot of times you might look at a photograph and notice a few things that have changed over the years when you compare them to the other ones. Let's see if I can get my cursor to work. Notice, for example, up here, you have what looks to be part of the couple insulators up here and a wooden post for the telephone system, okay? Notice the platform down here ends here and the track in the foreground is, you know, you can see the ties and these people
Trying to
are over
trace it
here.
online because they can't see your cursor. We're on
Okay.
pointing.
Gotcha.
So
Notice there's nothing over here. Like I said, we're looking at Burnside. Now this is also labeled Burnside, but notice up here, telephone wires are gone. This has been filled in. And what do you notice over here?
trees.
Trees. But what's interesting, coming from a horticultural background, where is the trunk of the tree up against the station? It appears as if the tree is literally floating there. And this was not Photoshopped. Don't know. But one of those things when I was looking at this, I said, okay, having an arborist background, where's the trunk of the tree? It's not a vine. Moving on. Here's Crystal Run. Okay. Up in your right-hand center corner, you'll notice it looks like the Wicked Witch of the West. She's missing her broomstick and her head, of course, but she's flying at gale force winds. But more interesting, look down to the right, below it. There's a perfect black sphere just hovering over the platform. Is this an errant, you know, it's not a speck of dust like that because you can see it's picking up a reflection. What is it?
Mark Kenna had his hand raised. I don't know if he
Okay.
did.
Signal ball?
No, it's too far from the track.
On the previous slide, Alan, the trunk of the tree looks like it's very thin to the right of the third window on the side.
Okay.
Yes. Over here?
Over here. We're off to you
Yeah,
said
the third window, just to the right of that, there's a trunk.
Yeah,
going-
it just,
It's
Mark, it
offset,
just,
but
it doesn't make sense because it's well off center and, you know, knowing how trees normally grow, that's why I questioned it. Just, you know, curiosity.
And the white post.
I think the white posts are actually stakes for the trees to cable the trees when they were planted. Like we have today's, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have a trunk. It's just, it's the weird thing.
Is it a postcard?
another thing with this, the station sign, it's
Yeah.
hard to tell, but this looks like it might be the white lettering on the blue background, but the previous slide, it was black lettering on a white.
Black lettering on the white. You said on the station
On
sign.
the previous slide, this one
This
looks
one, the
like,
Crystal Run.
no, back, keep going back.
This one.
No, yeah, that one.
Okay.
It's got Burnside and then it's, looks like some sort of mileage number on the right, but nothing on the left.
Did the O&W sometimes have mileage on one side of the sign and not the other?
He's right. The station, that was one thing I forgot to bring up. The station side sign did change. Because you can see here it's black on white, and here it's white on black.
Okay.
So another thing that,
Thank you. Rich Cobb thinks that white or that sphere might be a chicken for supper.
a chicken for supper, okay. Okay, and this is also Crystal Run, but there is no sphere,
No sphere.
no sphere. Notice, if you will, the background of the station. You have the raised platform over here and the staircase coming down, flagpole here, the little turnaround for here.
Hold on, I gotta keep up.
Okay, Alan's trying to keep up. I'll give him a minute.
I'm answering a question online. I'll just answer it. Christopher Finch asked if the station master and family stayed on the second floor. And that would have been yes.
Okay. This one I always assumed was Crystal Run, but now I'm thinking otherwise. It's Mechanics Town,
Mechanics.
from a different perspective than what I was used to as a kid. And would this be viewed from Dunning Road side? Yeah. I know it was moved, but
That might be the driveway.
Yeah, they moved it and rotated.
moved it and rotated it, right.
Now, 30 feet from the track or so?
Yeah, they did move it. It was privately owned.
Okay, so what are we looking at here? If you look over on the left-hand corner, it appears like there's semaphores over here.
That's gotta be mechanics then.
That's mechanics down. Okay, but wouldn't the track run left, right and not disappear?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Okay?
Stony Ford? Stony Ford?
Hmm,
Yes, burned in the late thirties, I think.
okay, so the verdict is out. Could be Stony Ford, it could be mechanics down. Another anomaly I noticed.
That's Burnside.
That is definitely Burnside. We're definitely sure that's Burnside. But notice, if you will, on the right-hand corner, the ladder of the signal tower
Yeah, it's
is between the rods for the interlocking and the rail.
Are you sure?
Yep.
It kind of fades off. I mean,
It kind of
could
fades
be.
off, but if you looked at the angle of it, it seems like it's very close in proximity to that right railhead. It's hard to say.
We don't know that's the post, it's a piece of it. Could be a reflection of the photograph.
It definitely looks like a ladder.
Definitely looks like a ladder,
Ladder.
I just don't know where it ends, though.
On the bottom.
because
Yeah.
here is the ladder. But here it appears it's been moved over almost.
I think it's just disappearing. It's so dark there that you can't see where the ladder ends.
Yeah,
Do you think that may be the edge of the photograph?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all the picture.
okay.
Nice picture of Burnside.
Good picture, Burnside. And this one is Meadowbrook, and I think I just put this in here for comparison. At this point, we've lost one of the tracks. And we still have the southbound main.
After
Don't.
1946, if that's.
Notice
Don't
the
have-
telltales.
Yeah, they're still there.
Yep, Telltale's still
Telltale.
there. I don't think this is a picture that Fred took, but it's, vegetation has grown up, track's gone, so pretty late in the game.
Water tank's probably out of service at that point.
1935, that went down. That's when the O&WRHS shut down the freight station, and I think the forties, the fire department torched the control burn,
What station did they torch?
this one. no,
This one, Meadowbrook,
Meadowbrook. And what year was that?
35.
35, that's at the freight service stop. And then in the 40s, I believe.
Okay,
We are back. Let me share my screen. Oh, host is disabled screen sharing.
Yeah, it's working now.
Oh, it's working now. I just need to be able to share my screen. Unfortunately, the host is on your computer,
which I'm not even on.
which you're
And I
not
couldn't
on.
get on.
So let me see what I can do here. I can do this. They can't see that video though.
Milo's playing tricks tonight.
Yeah, that's strange. I don't know. Well, I'm sure you can see, Ronnie, I'm sure you can see the screen, but it's not great.
No, it's washed out on the left-hand side of the screen. It's like a big white blotch covering half the screen.
All right, let me see if I can turn off the other light and see if we get it better.
No,
Any better, Ron?
no, it actually got worse.
Got
Oh,
worse.
okay. I'll turn the other light on then. No, it's fine. I've got to work around. So why don't you keep chugging until we get this
Okay.
figured out?
All right, we'll keep going
You
here
have a
for,
login for the Zoom thing?
I can let you into Joe's login.
Yep, I can do it on my phone. Thank you.
All right, so Milo was the first train crew member to die at his post. While reversing the locomotive, the tender brake was applied, derailing the locomotive, and he was thrown into the mud underneath it. Good point. Not sure. Okay. Oh, one thing I didn't bring up. Modern technology, when you put pictures now into the PowerPoint, AI automatically suggests a caption for you. Okay? So this next series, notice exact same, actually, next set. It's gonna bring up captions like that. Just bear with me on this. A train station with a person standing next to it. Okay,
Well, that's very helpful.
that's obvious, right? But my question is, there is an oncoming northbound train. He's standing in the gauge looking towards what we're assuming is the photographer's direction. Does he know the train is about to approach?
It's on board.
This one came from Doug Barbario. It's a lot brighter from mine. You can see again,
Train's on board.
train's not moving yet. Is he crossing the track? Is he just standing there for,
I think he's standing there, so somebody's taking his picture.
somebody's taking his picture, so he's posing for the camera, okay? He is not on a cell phone, so he's not distracted by his cell phone,
He's walking, his right foot is forward.
Right leg is forward.
okay? All right, but in the last program by Doug, he brought up the fact that, what is this structure back here with the X on top of it? We thought that might have been the tower that got moved over as JM, okay? But if you zoom in, I noticed something else. How about this? This almost appears to be like they took a boxcar off its trucks, set it on the ground, looks like maybe there's a stovepipe here, but the roof kind of goes up at an angle here. So I did zoom in and try to get a little bit of a better, definition to it, but this is definitely not what we thought got moved over to
No, definitely not.
to the other side. Yep, but you can see the CE coming in here, and this, of course, is JM. This, I don't think anyone's seen. This is a Russell Begg image up at JM of a Erie Lackawanna freight coming out of Maybrook. I'm assuming because the switch is lined against them, that they're waiting for a train coming in off. Okay, it was a spring switch. Thanks, Bob. That's why I thought, why is he that close to the signal if they're holding back there? So, okay, if he's in motion, that's a spring switch. Okay, is this a dwarf signal then? No, right? So I'm more great image in the fall, but I was curious as to what this device is down here. Is it part of the switch? Okay, here we go back to AI. A train crashed into a building, okay? Obviously, it's not crashed into the station. That's the only structure there other than the tower on the other side. This is what's left of the boxcar of the two trains involved. A person standing next to a destroyed train. And this is looking from the southbound side. The O&W station would be up over here. A person standing next to a train again. So three different angles, three different, commentaries from our lovely AI. So this was Tuesday, March 16th, 1920. Tragedy at Erie O&W crossover at Campbell Hall. Goshen man killed. Brother is seriously injured in wreck. The two trains involved were Erie South 380 and O&W East 32. Fireman James Moran was crushed on his engine. Montgomery branch train crashes into side of O&W freight train number 32. Caught between the engine and tender of Montgomery branch train 380, southbound passenger, which had just crashed broadside into O&W train 32. Southbound freight, James H. Moran of Goshen, fireman and overseas veteran, was crushed to death at 7:15 Saturday night. His brother Michael, engineer, lies in a serious condition at Thrall Hospital. The left leg broken, several broken ribs, bad scalp wounds, and possible internal injuries. The accident occurred on the Erie grade crossing of the O&W 100 feet north of the O&W depot at Campbell Hall. No passengers were injured. Train 380 was running about 20 minutes behind time, leaving in Montgomery at 6:40 in the evening in charge of conductor Michael Connolly. It was due at the junction at 6:56 and at Goshen, its terminal, where it connects with 178. That's the Erie train they're talking about. Mainline southbound train at 7:13. It consisted of engine 893, combination car, and two coaches. Train 32 was made up of 35 cars in charge of engineer Joseph Kelsey and conductor E. Henry, both of this city. They're speaking of Middletown. It was due out of this city at 1:30, but it did not leave until about 5 hours later. 32's 27th car was just passing the junction when engines 893 struck it. 3 O&W cars were completely derailed, with the front trucks of a fourth, while engine 893 and its tender were thrown from the rails and dropped down a bank, remaining, however, in an upright position. We are assuming that that is engine 893 based on the photographs and the description. Exactly how James Moran lost his life is not known. It is believed, however, when the crash came, he attempted to jump and save his own life, and in some manner was caught by the chain which hangs between the engine and the tender. And when the two buckled, his life was crushed out. His body shows a terrible bruise between the shoulder and hip on the left side. A wire was sent immediately over the Erie to the city and in turn to the O&W to have an ambulance ready at 8 o'clock. Thrall Hospital was notified, and when CNE engine train number 127 arrived here at 8:15, Michael Moran was rushed to the hospital. His broken leg was immediately set in a cast. While none of the passengers on 180 was injured, there were some narrow escapes, among which was that of F.E. Kearns of Goshen, a night operator at the MQ Tower near Campbell Hall, who was riding in the combination car. Another was that of Dr. Herbert E. Wright, district superintendent of the Methodist Church, who spoke Sunday night at St. Paul's Church in the city. He was back at his pulpit on Sunday night. Traffic was tied up on the O&W tracks for many hours. Wrecking crews from the CNE, again at Maybrook, the Erie at Port Jervis, and the O&W in the city in charge of conductor W.R. Avery went to the scene. The northbound track was cleared at 10:30 Saturday evening and the southbound at 7:15 a.m. Sunday. To avoid traffic delay, the northbound was run as a single track line until Sunday morning. The damaged cars were brought to the shops in the city. How the accident happened is speculative. Officials are conducting an investigation. The theory is that the air on 380's brakes refused to operate and the train could not be brought to a stop. The fact that both trains were late may have played some part, especially as 32 should have passed that point hours before. Michael Moran, who could probably throw some light on the matter, has been in such condition as to prevent getting his version of the accident. He lapsed into unconsciousness Sunday morning. He could not then be seen. However, his brother Martin, who lives in the city, was at his bedside Saturday night, while Sunday Edward of Goshen watched over him. The dead man was in his 29th year. He was born September 1st, 1891 in Goshen, the son of Michael Moran and Mary Murphy. He had always lived in Goshen at 2 Sayre Street. Michael's injuries were sustained just 5 days before his birthday. He will be 34 on Thursday, March 18th. He has been an engineer for 12 years. So that was the official write-up that I could find. And that's what happened at the O&W Erie Montgomery
You
branch.
said they had no brakes, the brakes weren't working, the automatic?
That's what they theorized.
They could have had an angle top closed halfway through the train.
Could have had an hour clock. Yep,
Yeah.
But the cold affecting something.
could have been.
It'd been nice to know.
The Erie would have had the right of way there?
The Erie would have had a right of way there, correct, Doug?
That I'm not sure.
Hmm.
It was there first, right? Isn't that generally how it went in railroads? First railroad
One
there.
train's running out of schedule, though, right?
Erie was there first, yep.
One train's running out of schedule.
Now, one thing I did find curious, notice the direction of the semaphore.
Down.
Wouldn't that be
Slow.
slow?
They
Wouldn't
changed-
that be
yeah.
for the southbound Erie train?
Huh.
Unless it was damaged in the wreck, but most of the wreck is occurring in these two quadrants.
Yeah.
So if the signal blade was at stop for the southbound, he should have stopped. Correct?
Correct.
This is my
Wreck-
NTSB
Wreck investigation.
wreck investigation theory. It just, dawned on me, looking
download.
at the semaphore up here, it's in the slow position.
Nowadays, they'd have a download of the locomotive, they know how fast it was going, what the throttle modulation
Yep.
was, what the air was, an outward facing camera, an inward facing camera.
Spoken like a man that works the railroad.
I might work for the railroad, I might.
Yeah. And this is also at Campbell Hall,
Talking about the Wallkill Valley train or the,
the Walkie Valley train, yeah.
okay.
again, not sure who took it, when it was taken, but this was on the back, was labeled Campbell Hall. And they're doing a pickup in Campbell Hall. This is not a set of pushers. Now, whether this is up in the yard, you know, to the east of the station, I'm assuming. Not entirely sure. Okay. Dave Mazurik online with us?
I don't know if he is.
He registered.
We lost a couple people when we had that glitch, but we still got 45 people online.
All right. Thanks for sticking with us.
I don't know if Dave's on.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. How many times did the bridge at Fish's Eddy collapse and when? Twice. Good. Twice in 18, and I never got back to putting in the correct date. So if somebody wants to fill in the date, my mistake. That would be the first one, I believe. The caboose of freight number 40 plus 6 cars derailed from a broken rail and caused one span to collapse, and the stove set the wreckage on fire. Conductors Howard Raymond, Ezra Smith, Brakeman Allen Embler, and Emmett Johnson were killed. In 1897, the weight of a coal train causes the second collapse. Did I put it in here? Nope. Let me go back. Actually, I'll just keep up. I did read in one of the books that one of the widows of one of the trainmen was, when she was notified, she was found pacing back and forth. She had a premonition that something tragic had occurred. So she was a little. It was an empty train.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lightning strikes twice.
Yeah.
Okay. So
There's a
it just says the weight of a coal train. So unsure, you know.
Posts in front of the bridges.
Okay.
Protect the bridges.
Okay. Here's another image of the Fish's Eddy Bridge, labeled Fish's Eddy. But notice, if you will, look at how the girders line up over here. It just doesn't appear right, because back here we have parallel lines. What is over here? It's not a shadow because it's a postcard.
Mark,
The weird.
Mark said
Mark's
that
got an
the first collapse was March 2nd, 1886. So that would have been tomorrow, 138
There you go.
years ago.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. So here's one image. And I know in one instance, this is where I was counting on Dave on being online, but he might have left. The center span collapsed, and one instance, one of the outer spans collapsed. You can just see. This is the first collapse, I'm assuming. You can just see the wreckage of a car in here.
Wow.
Okay. There's a boxcar right here.
That's a boxcar.
That's definitely a boxcar, right? The next one are empty coal cars.
It's a lot clearer too.
Lot clearer image. Yep. This is one of the most crystal clear ones. Notice the guys down here. Are they fishing for trout? What are they doing down here? Here's a guy in, you know, as you look at these pictures, you'll see like more and more people pop up that you're not aware of. You can see this group up here. They're collecting the coal for the winter. Okay. Okay. I have no information on what this is. I know what it's not. Looks like Moon, but remember well, okay, if you want to talk about, right, down at Otter Kill. This one is actually from a newspaper clipping. Ice skaters on the Ferndale Pond stare at an O&W camelback pulling a milk train over the Ferndale iron trestle on a wintry day at the turn of the century. Interesting, because obviously this got rebuilt. This, believe it or not, I didn't notice this, but this was supposed to be cut off. This is Firth Cliff. I was going to ask which viaduct are we looking at here? And of course, this is Firth Cliff, Orr's Mills. You can still stand over here, but aren't they building a house? They're building a house like in the
House being built
on top of the foundation.
Bob, you posted that something.
On the far end was Lord's Mill Station.
On this slide, Bob, right?
On that far end was Lord's Mill Station.
Okay. All right, Owen's back. 4 tunnels were constructed over the entire route of the O&W. What were the locations and approximate lengths?
North to south.
I do, where.
Well, that's the other. Merrickville, South Paulsburg. South Paulsburg.
Hawk Mountain and North.
Hawk Mountain and, Hawk Mountain's before South.
That's it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then, north and south,
Okay.
and then of course Highview.
Any guesstimations on the lengths?
Highview the longest.
Have you been
3,100
long?
feet,
Close?
3,300 feet.
Highview Bloomingburg, 3,800. Northfield, 1,600, and both Fallsburg and Kadoja/Hawk Mountain were just around 1,000. Your battery's running low. Great.
So what else can go on to the?
Okay, no, we can fix that. Now,
I've still got it on here.
if you see down here. Usually the battery's on this.
Take it. That's an easy problem, please.
This is an easy one.
What was the name of that guy that was fired?
Milo.
Milo.
No, he was not fired. He was killed.
Oh.
Killed on his post. Curse of Milo.
All right.
Yes.
Can I just, that the truss you had, that picture you had, there was no trestle? Can I just add trestle note in here?
Sure. We're gonna go back for Bob.
About the original trestles, first trestle. My grandmother was a kid, she had a walker cloth, that was a shortcut at the Exhorts Mills. You thought she had names for that trestle, I will not repeat, she could remember walker cloths that were trains for companies. She didn't have any fond memories of that bridge, she had a lot of names, but I'm not gonna tell you right now.
Thank you, Bob.
And the house is on that end.
Okay, November 1868, the tunnel at Bloomingburg is under contract to Hitchcock and Company from Oneida. Completed October 9th, 1871. The first train through was January 24th, 1872, and the first regularly scheduled passenger train on February 1st, 1872. Fallsburg, which side of the tunnel are we looking at?
I think you're on the north side.
On the north side. Whoops. What happened there? Postcard view of Fallsburg. This one I found is Watchman at Northfield Tunnel. I'm going to assume that this is World War I era,
I'd say, yeah, maybe a little bit before.
right?
The Kaiser. I don't think the Kaiser had any designs on Northfield.
This one came from Doug as well. 286 at Northfield Tunnel. We don't see like winters like that anymore.
No.
And the 407 exiting Hawk Mountain. This one also came from Doug.
Looks like a model.
Looks like a model. Okay, for Bob, we're down at Firth Cliff, Montana. All right. Almost looks like there's more camp cars or maintenance away cars over here, and
I believe that picture was taken when they were starting to build the underpass.
the underpass. That's what I was assuming. Pre-construction of the underpass.
That monstrosity.
That's the one that makes a 90-degree.
Bob, was there also a siding over here? Because it looks like boxcar and,
Yeah, there was another side behind.
okay,
Behind the station.
behind the station. Okay,
That bay window, I actually have stained glass in it.
awesome. Okay,
That was
how about this one?
at the end.
Believe it or not, the lady right here is Doris, Fred's wife. And this young fellow right here is Mark, her son, Fred's son, who is now in his mid-60s. And by the grace of God, I became friends with Russell after Fred passed away and remarried, after Doris remarried Russell. And this was in his collection, and they have bequeathed me in perpetuity the entire collection of both Fred and Russell. So one of the nice things about meeting Russell spur of the moment one day, back when I was 17, if that day didn't take place, I'm not sitting here in front of you guys tonight doing this presentation. So this is probably definitely post-abandonment, but not sure if this is when the West Shore is still coming up here or not. Looks like the tracks are pretty grown in. A little bit of a different perspective. How about this one?
I've seen both of those.
The plywood looks good.
The plywood looks great. Just came out of Home Depot.
Yeah, it's really not that bad shape.
So this is the early '60s, 64, this comes down?
Now, we said the station burned 63.
Coincidence here, Eric, September 18th was the date of the Cold Dark Fire and the station fire on the same day.
Same day, same year, or just same
day.
same date?
Mice and matches.
Vandals got it.
Montana station sign, half of it was saved, they put the store in the first club, then the first club burned.
Huh.
Over the right, there's
But-
traffic. Go back to the right, there's not traffic.
There's not trackage at this point,
It's
right?
a lot later.
It's a lot later, but that's where that track would have been in, where it looks like a road right away, where they are in fact walking on it.
That
burned what year?
63 from what we learned from that, one of those observers that I read, that the station had burned the previous fall, I think they said.
And I thought, I had come to realize the fire was not, it was not deliberately burned.
It was,
Everything was on, it was not deliberate, it was not a deliberate art.
It was not a controlled burn, right?
No, yes and no, there's a story behind that.
Okay. And this was in that same sequence. There was both black and white and color photographs. I believe we're looking, railroad north towards, the next station of the line, Meadowbrook, towards Meadowbrook from Perth.
that would have been the section shanty there,
Believe so.
a telephone booth.
Yep.
What weight rail did the O&WRHS have?
What weight rail did the O&W have?
I don't know. You can check on the track charts, they'll show on the track charts what the weight of the rail is, and when the ties are installed and everything like that. Check out the archives, maybe we'll find them in there.
So this is from Wake to Threads. The date is October 2nd, 1963. This is going to answer our question. Many thanks for your letter of September 24th. Good to hear from you. Thanks also for the clipping of the burning of the first lift depot. That building had one hell of a lot of character and charm. It's a darn shame that it had to go like it did. It had a style that has all but disappeared from the station scene of today. It's a shame the old Montana sign could not have been salvaged. So as Bob just pointed out, some of it was, but it burned again. Owen's back. What were the names of the first 5 New York and Oswego Midland locomotives? Dick George Chevy, Joey Sinise.
Little John?
Little John,
Nope.
Midland.
Midland? Is that one of them?
Anybody want to answer before I go ahead? Anybody want to
Anybody
try
online?
stab online?
How about Groucho?
No?
Flying Scotsman.
Flying Scotsman. That was a guess online?
No.
No, okay. Anybody? Okay, let's go ahead. On April 24th, 1869, the first locomotive arrived at Oneida. Number 1 was the Oswego, which cost $15,000 in 1869 dollars, and that works out to be $351,505 $2024. Relatively cheap in comparison to what is the cost of a modern day locomotive? Anywhere from 1 to 2 million,
Yeah.
anywhere up to 20 million for an electric locomotive. It was built by Rhode Island Locomotive Works. Number 2, the Madison, 3, Shenango, 4, Oswego, and number 5, the Sullivan arrives in June of 1869, so only 2 months later.
So named after the counties that it ran.
Named after the county.
And that's similar to New York and Erie when they first built through the 1840s, they named it the Orange and the, yeah.
So they got 2 Oswegos?
Eric?
Whoops.
Yeah,
You've
Mark.
got Oswego in there.
Yeah, I
twice.
do have that in. You're right.
Yeah,
That,
no-
okay.
number 4, I'm looking in Helmer, was the Delaware.
Delaware would make sense,
Okay,
Delaware County.
okay.
Owen was wrong.
Owen was wrong, but Owen also spent upwards of, up until 2 a.m. working on this presentation some nights. So Owen could have been, a little dreary. Owen does not partake of the spirits, but yeah. We'll let that one fly. All right. I can't read the writing on here,
Oh, I've seen this picture.
but off to the right, it looks like we have slabs of bluestone.
Yeah,
right?
maybe wood acid.
Or it could be wood acid.
Yeah.
That's a wood acid plant in the background.
Yeah.
But it almost looks like there's a siding going into something on the right hand. It's in Dan.
I think the writing at the bottom is, I think is saying, Elk Brook.
Elk Brook.
Elk
You
Brook.
can almost read it.
I could see the K, but I couldn't understand the other two.
Yeah.
Elk Brook. So would that make sense? The B is kind of
Yeah.
like smeared out.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Oh,
This is what I thought was in the same spot. Notice the derrick over here, but when I enlarge it, the track's curving off to the right, not to the left. And this is oriented the right way because I zoomed in on the number here and the lettering is not reversed. So I'm not sure where this took place, when, et cetera. I just thought it was
what is the locomotive number? 29?
29 or 89. It's hard to discern because the 9 is clear as a day, but the other one, it's kind of like blotted out. So you can see the tender over here.
Yeah.
Yep. So would like to know where and when it took place, but that's gonna go unanswered. This is what I thought was that same picture with the derrick over here. This I read in one of the books. This was, can't remember the individual's name, but apparently he cut through 10 inches of bluestone in an hour, and he was like one of the fastest people that could cut through the bluestone slabs.
Like John Henry.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was another stone mentioned, and that was 16 inches. So I might have my numbers backwards, but I like this, kind of like this picture a lot. So this is Kenny Brothers Stone Dock at Long Eddy. So I don't know, like I said, that other picture we were looking at would have the track was curving around that way as well. So we could be looking at the same spot or something, similar to it.
That's on the Erie. Long Eddy.
That's on here.
That's on the Erie. Okay.
Long Eddy.
Okay. Scratch that from the record. Moving on. Cooks Falls. Thanks, Doug. Notice, if you will, stations over here, fences, little bit above the river, not exactly straight. The roof up here. What would this be?
Probably the water tower.
Water tower.
Water tower.
Water tank?
It's my
Okay.
guess.
And then the photographer would be up here on the ridge looking down and over it, correct?
Fresh ballast though on the northbound main.
That's an early drone shot.
It's an early drone shot. Thank you. I thought of that
Oh,
myself.
that's not ballast. It's the
We'll go ahead a little bit. Now notice the fence is much straighter. There's no water tank. There's no fence on the left-hand side. Again, it's a postcard image, so they might have taken some artist, liberty and changed things around. But you can see the water spout here, see the tracks. This next one had me look really hard at it. Different view, but you almost have to ask yourself, this is the road. This is wagon ruts over here. Where's the track in front of the station?
I think it's below that ridge line there.
Below the ridge line. You can just barely see it over here. It's just a perspective. And I was trying to figure out if the semaphores are right here, what happened to the track? It's just buried, beyond the viewpoint that you can see. Just 3 different perspectives at Cooks Falls. Owen's back again. He's pesky tonight. In 1871, the first blank moved from Bloomingburg to Middletown and was transferred to the Erie.
Let me guess, milk can.
You're very close. Alan's going to go with milk can. I'm going to give it to him. The first milk car was actually moved from Bloomingburg to Middletown and was transferred to the Erie. You're in the ballpark. You're close. This is down on the West Shore. Notice, if you will, this style of bridge over here, 3 different spans going over the tracks. You can see Haver,
Haverstraw.
with a 140, Haverstraw. And when I compared it to what I thought we were looking at originally, I thought of these shots. same three bridges, but not the or not the West Shore. There's no station, completely different.
That's,
Wait, hang on. I think I will pass this spot Sunday, November 12th, about 6:30 a.m. on Milk Train blank going to Otisville again. This is in fact at Howells Junction on the Erie. Very similar style of bridge. I guess this was probably not exclusive to the Erie or the O&W or the West Shore, but this shows up, this style shows up. Few pictures. This is further back on the Erie on the main line going over the hill, not to the tunnel at Otisville.
and that's before the Grand Line.
That's before the Grand Line. Notice the tower.
Tower's where the Grand Line is.
The tower is where the Grand Line is. And Doug can correct me if I'm wrong. The tower was one point, probably after the Grand Line moved to the eastern side of the bridge. And it was also known from there east to Middletown Summit as the Hogback. So just compare and contrast. I kind of like the sweep of the curve. I drove past here last week. This is entirely treed in. You can barely see one of the concrete or the cut stone
There's a
arches.
cut stone culvert.
Cut stone culvert, yep.
This time of year.
And there's one on this side and there's one further down as well. Here's Owen again. When was the New York, Ontario, and Western?
When?
Yeah, again, 2:30 in the morning, yeah.
1879.
It's Milo again.
That's okay.
When, from down south, when was the New York, Ontario, and Western Railway Incorporated?
We got a guess over here, 1879. Dennis King online says 1880.
1879, 1880. Winner goes to January 21st, 1880. Very good. Somebody knows their history. This one I had no idea until I started doing a little bit more research. Anybody want to shout out what we're looking at?
Mayfield.
Mayfield Yard, okay. For some reason, I was getting it confused with Walton, but not Walton, Mayfield Yard. My question is, if you notice the turntable over here, this next shot, I think we're going to be looking from this way. Looks like a similar turntable.
Well, that's not the same one because 1890 is when they would have built their Mayfield.
Different place?
This is much earlier than 1890.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
The only reason I asked is because, you got the tracks over here and you're looking at this way. So-
might be down in Weehawken.
Okay,
We got a guess for Weehawken.
got a guess for Weehawken. All right. Again, not sure. There's nothing in the background. It's just kind of like, all I can see is a telephone pole up here and back over here. So we go back here. Can't see. All right, so it's going to go unresolved, or the best guess scenario is Weehawken.
That was Gerald online. That was his guess was Weehawken.
Weehawken, okay. Owen's back again. When was the last rails of the Midland, when the last rails of the Midland were spiked, where did it happen and what was inscribed on them? This is one of the hardest ones.
Yeah.
Where was the golden, the prominent
Where-
for the O&W?
Where was the final rails laid?
It said expiration date, March 29th, 1957. That's what it said.
And my question is, what happened to them? Okay, any guesses online?
Westfield Flats, Dennis King. Ronnie says Roscoe. So
Okay, they're in the
Here.
ballpark again.
I just revealed it. So
Yep, okay. 12 miles west. Now, Elmer has west, Wakefield had east. So wherever Hellhole is, or what location they're talking about, if it was east or west, not sure, of Roscoe, Westfield Flats. On the Western Rail was inscribed D.C. Littlejohn, who is DeWitt Clinton Littlejohn, the first, anyone?
first president.
First president of the Oswego Midland, right?
The promoter,
And he was the main promoter with
former mayor of Oswego, New York.
former mayor, the voice of the North, and Lowe was the voice of the Southern Division. And it's no coincidence that Lowe Avenue is the street that parallels the O&W Middletown Station. Sure. And he gave land for the yard at AV. And on the Eastern Rail, George Opdyke. And I think Opdyke came later in the reorganization. Anybody care to view? Care to guess? Kenosha. Okay, we got the Scranton branch curving off here. We got the Kenosha Viaduct over here. At this point, still single track. And the station down here and the Y coming off over here. And the water tower is right in here. What is the building over here? This is, we're gonna get a down low version here in a couple seconds, looking back this way with some humorous writing on it. Again, another early postcard view of the trestle of Kenosha. Station's up in here. This shot is, widely publicized. I really, this one is one of the nice, good contrast, clean. Do they know a train's coming? Just like the gentleman back at Campbell Hall, because they better get up quick. This is the double tracking, which I surmised.
Yep.
Notice that bend.
Yep. This next one made me laugh. Kenosha station, way out, hills, woods, snakes, etc. And the answer was, this is the post office, and this is Main Street. Of course, nowadays, this, somewhere in here, is 17. So kind of a different perspective that I didn't ever see before this. They traced out the outline of the mountains, so kind of a cool little couple words on here to describe what they thought of Kenosha. The hills, the woods, and snakes. Lots of snakes. Owen's back one more time. When was the Scranton branch completed, and what were the 3 predecessor railroads it comprised?
1890.
Yep.
Okay, Walt's got 1890.
So is Dennis King. Ontario, Carbondale, and Scranton. One railroads.
Yep. Anybody else?
State line.
What was that, Walt?
Forest City.
Forest City and State Line, you say? Okay. We have a third? Okay. June 30th, 1890, the Hancock in Pennsylvania, Forest City and State Line, and the Scranton and Forest City.
Huh.
And I believe that also came from Helmer's book as well. So that's where I got that information. If it's incorrect, what I found interesting, this is a Sunday excursion to Coney Island on the New York, Ontario Western. Notice the dates, Sunday, September 7th, 1884. If you read further down the smaller lines, a magnificent ride through the highlands of the Hudson and a delightful sail down. This is like an eye test of the optometrist. The lower you go, the smaller the writing gets. And a delightful sail down New York Harbor and Bay to Bay Ridge, viewing Governor's Island with its forts, Bedloe's Island, where the Bartholdi statue will stand, Brooklyn's Great Bridge.
Ah,
Do we know what the Bartholdi statue is?
yeah.
Statue of Liberty. So this is prior to, I believe, 1886 was when it was officially open, dedicated, right? I got a complete education because as a kid, the Statue of Liberty is in New York Harbor. It was donated by the French, but you don't get the background story like I did when I went on, I think, Google and, got the Wikipedia version of what is the Bartholdi statue? I didn't know what it was called.
This was part of the O&W's Coney Island branch, of course.
This was the Coney Island branch. Right, instead of rails to the mountains, it was rails to the sea.
Yeah.
It was a kiddie park. It was an amusement ride. Yep. Count the number of people in the picture. I think you'll come up with 9. It's kind of like Where's Waldo? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This guy's really well. 7, 8, 9.
The new playground.
It's the new playground, right?
Ocean Traffic Control Team standing by.
Yep. Before anybody showed up, this just happened. They probably derailed the train. They showed up to take a picture like this. Today's version would be the selfie. Look what I did on my cell phone.
Be a live stream.
It'd be a live stream, right?
Engineer blew down bridge, or the guy was looking at his cell phone.
It's also single track, I believe. Unless there's another set of rails under here, it's possible. They rolled down.
I think they were piled up.
It looks like they were piled up, but neatly stacked, empty as well. Anybody want to guess online where this was? Starlight?
Dennis King asked, was this the Scranton branch?
Okay,
So
okay, so we're gonna point toward the Scranton branch. Walt says Starlight. Thank you, Walt. Thank you, Dennis. Beerston, I had to look this one up. It's pretty much as close to the center between Weehawken and Oswego, because if you look over here, the mileage to Oswego is 150, and over here we're at 174, so kind of somewhere almost in the middle. I can't tell if this, to me, looks like there's leaves on the trees, leaves up here, leaves over here. Is this snow? Is it, looks like something's washed down the track.
It looks like there was a flood.
It looks like a flood, right? Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's like, if this is a crossing, it's almost like over the rail, so I think they're gonna be waiting a while.
It's probably taken the summer of 2023.
2023, Doug says, yes. The DeLorean is right here.
looks like there's. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
she's wearing a hat, she's wearing a coat as well, she's wearing some pretty heavy, attire, and
It
so are
almost
these
like
guys.
there's still water there between the two
Right?
mains.
It looks like it's frozen, like ice in here even.
No, it looks like it's still water that's
Still
rippling.
water, okay,
Yeah,
water that's
rippling
rippling.
water.
It's possible, yeah, and this could be picking up the reflection of the mountain, so, like I said, I think they're gonna be waiting there a while. This one, I can't make out the station. Anybody get a guess as to what station we're looking at?
Looks like
Not
Ulster,
sure it's
Delaware.
O&W, that's a possibility, just like the other one was.
Ulster and Delaware.
Say Ulster, Delaware.
Could be, because some of those negatives popped up as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so
What does the sign say? National.
it says National
Express.
Express Company.
Well, you can't be in the picture.
Is it the camera angle or is it like?
DNN, okay, so Bob Earl is gonna think that the DNN, I think the station sign is just over the telegraph sign, but I couldn't zoom in to get it clear enough, but it's very well possible it's on the DNN.
Well, can you see?
I couldn't make it out.
DNN, because I think the stations that are still there, they do look like that as far as their.
Maybe the Ulster, Delaware.
Isn't that right straight up above the lady's head? It's like,
That says National Express Company.
oh,
Yeah,
Anybody online have any idea about this one? Nobody?
okay,
Okay.
all right.
Whoa, where is this?
Where is this? This was the most, I wanted to know where this one was. I thought I knew, but I have inclination it's on the Scranton branch,
Yeah.
Scranton division.
I don't know about the building.
I don't know if it's O&W.
well, the window.
I'm not told, it's just like Durbin, right?
Bob Rainey says broken window.
Chart, maybe the rest of the building looks,
Yeah, it's just, it's like, I want to say I know where it is, but it's brick,
Yeah.
so
No rails in front of it.
there's no, you can almost see like, there looks like switch timbers in here.
Yeah, it's pulled up.
It's pulled
You
up,
can see the
and when it was taken, could be anybody's.
C&J was Christopher.
Yeah,
what he
it
suggested.
reminds me of
It
C&J.
does remind me of a C&J tower. I
Reminds
wonder
me
if
of
it's
C&J.
C&J like south of Scranton.
Could be
going
south
out
of
towards-
Scranton,
Yeah.
There's a station in,
not Jim Thorpe.
between Mayfield and, that way. There's a guy by the name of Jim Depote, he owns the station that was moved. And it kind of looks like that, right, Walt? You know what I'm talking about?
think it's in Mayfield. Right in Mayfield. Yeah, but that long turret there is. Something like the one that you would have.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what that station was.
Carbondale,
it's-
question mark, I don't think that's.
It's a brick
Carbondale.
station on top of, cut stone foundation. I don't think they would have moved it, but. All right,
It's elevated too.
it's elevated. Yep, it's down, street levels down here, so. All right. Kind of looking forward to somebody identifying it, but it's gonna go into the mystery negatives,
Definitely think it's Scranton region though.
Scranton region. Again, this is a section where I have no locations on these, so
That many tracks.
I don't think it's Maybrook.
You don't think so?
I don't think so because
What's in the back there?
this is what's throwing me off. The amount of, looks like power lines going back in here, kind of. It might be Maybrook,
Unless that's.
Weehawken question mark.
could be Weehawken.
You'd see the ridge in the background feels Weehawken. I think it might be Maybrook.
Unless you were looking, east towards the riverside. The ridge, if it was Weehawken, yes, could be up here, but
Because I think in Weehawken, those tracks curved
curved, right?
very, very prominently.
Yep. So,
What about if it's Fox? No, I don't know if it's Fox.
What's
over
over
between
between the Hopper and?
Coxton Yard on the Lehigh Valley.
What about-
this is a boxcar, I think.
You'd
So
still
you can
see
see,
the
you
mountains.
can see the end of the boxcar,
Yeah,
and then the second boxcar. There is a roof over here.
yeah.
So there's, some kind of roof detail over the boxcars over here, but not real sure. Okay, another one unanswered.
That's.
This is Maybrook for sure. It's
Yes.
definitely Maybrook. That was an easy one. I just threw in, a couple of these yard
Comparisons.
shots, comparisons, yeah. This one, you can make
It
out,
wasn't the same concept, was it?
no, 802 and the 807.
Yeah, but it could be the other side of it.
The other way.
Moving on.
That's
This is definitely Maybrook,
Neighbor.
and this is,
Lehigh,
New England?
these are my girls, the Lehigh New England FAs. As you know, I modeled Lehigh New England, so I threw this in here. Just because, two fallen flags, definitely, pre-57, 61, Lehigh New England goes out, so. Looks like the tracks are in
Yep.
pretty good shape in Maybrook, so
TOFC.
this is that is a piggyback for off of New Haven. Yep. Looks like maybe a couple cement cars in here.
Yep.
Yep. So they're in town. They're bringing Eastern PA cement up. This one, Doug and I went back and forth a while back, and we were trying to decide where on Lehigh, New England, is it double tracked? And if this came out of Fred's collection, it's, somewhere local, we think. Doug pointed out a good thing. The track over here starting to curve. Whoop, sorry about that. Track over here starting to curve. Track over here is straight.
No, it couldn't be where the Maybrook Loop comes off, do you think?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that is the
We-
Maybrook Loop.
Bob Earl agrees. This track over here on the left
Yeah.
is,
Okay.
And because it's extended, at one point,
Yep.
it was extended up to the O&W station, right around here is where it actually is today. It's cut in the.
Yep.
The switches right in that area.
so we're just far enough back that you can't see into Campbell Hall. You can't see, Campbell Hall
No
Station or
man's
the
land.
end or any, yeah, you're in no man's land basically.
On the
Yep.
pole, on the pole. and-
You're headed south towards MQ and the Diamond crossing of the Erie's Graham line. Owen, again, first through train from Oswego to Jersey City via the New Jersey Midland occurred on
1872? 73?
anybody else? Alan's going with 72, 73. July 10th, 1873, right on the money. Okay, this is where we're going to start to transition here. This is from the Jersey Central lines. Fortunately, okay, Peter Rome, the old woman of the Schwangunks, the O&W story. This is up at Middletown. Notice the Middletown Yard Office over here. This is where we get into the tribute part. This is the end. The 29th of March, 57, the day the plug would be pulled. Final runs began that evening, and NW10 departing Norwich at 5 in the afternoon with 4 diesels, 805 in the lead, 4 caboose, and offline cars. Arrived in Middletown at 3:15 the morning of the 30th. the very last train to tie up. An extra from Monticello had arrived earlier at 7:30 with foreign cars and company equipment and was greeted by exploding torpedoes. The old woman had died. Mayfield Yard employees went home that morning of the 30th, leaving the utensils for their customary coffee break in the usual place. There would be no more hot coffee and no other reason to return. Kind of sad reading this. Sister Susie Q wasn't doing all that great. Of course, they're talking about the NYS&W. This one-time lessee of the O&W would soon see its RDC sold off in 1958 to the Jersey Central, M7 through M4, 558 through 561. An abandonment application would be filed in 1960. Neighbor Lehigh, New England would go by the board in 1961. Passenger service would end on June 30th, 1966. It would go bust in 76, talking about the NYS&W. But with its sale to Delaware Otsego in Delaware, they have Oswego, it's Delaware Otsego. In 1980, it might just survive yet. We'll never know. Although it had come perilously close to buying the farm just before that sale. Now comes the disbursement of the estate, and this was initially confusing and almost required a scorecard to keep track of the entrants. Ellenville shippers claimed to have interested the Erie, New York Central, and Pinsley in restoring service there. Never heard about the Pinsley part.
Yes, yeah.
Erie sought Port Jervis to Summitville, to Ellenville, to Kingston, while the Central and Pinsley sought only Ellenville to Kingston. The Erie was talking of the 3.5 miles from Middletown to Fair Oaks to preserve its link to its Pine Bush branch.
Yep.
Monticello businessmen were said to be working out something, and the Unadilla Valley Railroad might want the 2 miles between New Berlin Junction and Sydney to connect with the D&H, having just lost its O&W connection. Sullivan County businessmen talked of a 90-mile short line between Port Jervis, Mountaindale, Liberty, and possibly some other communities. Meanwhile, emergency orders were issued for the Erie, DL&W, and New York Central to serve customers at interchange stations. Erie ran the Pine Bush branch connector. Lackawanna ran Utica to New Hartford and switched Norwich and Scranton. New York Central ran Fulton, Oswego, and switched Rome, Oneida, and Kingston. On June 27th, Judge Ryan received the final bids on the entire property at the close of a 3-day series of hearings in New York City. The high bid was made to Salzburg for the entire line of the grand total, $6,850,000. But this was topped by individual bids for segments totaling $10,031,820, including $3,935,000 from Salzburg for the Oswego, Norwich, Rome, and Utica branches. Kedoshia to Middletown, $2,876,000 from Moskowitz Salvage for Norwich to Kedoshia, the Delhi branch, and the 14-mile grade between Kedoshia and Pointel. Also, the Kingston to Port Jervis Monticello line, plus Middletown to Cornwall and Mayfield, Pennsylvania scrap dealer John Bowman for the Sibley Junction / Scranton to Pointel line. There were other bids on just equipment, such as $20,000 on 4 pieces of blueprint equipment. Business card number 30 was sold to Buffalo banker Charles Diebold for $3,020. It was one of those cars still extant that Grover Cleveland was said to have used. His riding of PVs was second only, private varnish, was second only to George Washington's bed hopping. I missed that the first time around. On July 8th, all bids were confirmed by Judge Ryan. Into 1958, and on the 15th of May came the final date for creditors to file claims against the old woman's estate. In the interim, the Salisbury began tearing up the Middletown yard and the main line above that point, north of Fair Oaks, using the Wellsville Addison Gallatin Ford diesel number 1200, which had arrived from Gallatin on the 4th of April. Bauman and Moskowitz, despite the latters having some financial problems, were tearing up some of their purchased trackage, and some of the relay ties and timbers were sold off to the WAG and the M&J. The latter a small survivor in part of the old Midland route. By 1960, the creditors had been taken care of and had received $8,805,000 from the proceeds of the sale on claims totaling 77 million, the best settlement that could be worked out. The total had been 10 million, but there was a deduction to pay off the equipment trust certificates. Bondholders received 1,450,000 in settlement on claims of 58 million. This sounds like a treasurer's report. 1,390,000 went to 175 railroads having claims of 3,600,000. Municipalities in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York received 970,000 against property tax claims of 2,900,000. And of course, the US government got 3 million, almost $4 million on their railroad retirement claim of 7.7 million. Holders of the 4% refundable bonds of 1992 received $55.58 per bond, and the holders of the 4% general mortgage bonds of 1955 got $23.91. The motive power. The GE 44 tonners had left the property in the early 50s with number 101 going to the Salt Lake, Garfield, and Western as its DS-2, and the 105, you know that number, as its DS-1. Both still operating there in 1981. Number 102 went to the Mississippi Export as its number 47, then to the Fernwood, Columbia, and Gulf, now the Illinois Central Gulf, what's left of it, as D6. Then to the Fort Dodge, Des Moines, and Southern as number 502. It was retired after the Chicago and Northwestern acquired the Fort Dodge trolley line and then scrapped in 1972. Number 103 went directly to the FC&G as D5, then to the Fort, assuming that's Fort Des Moines and Southern. Yeah, as 503, and currently runs for Simplot Chemicals in Brandon, Manitoba. Number 104 went to Great Northern Paper in Maine as their number 5, and then on to the Hartwell at a 10-mile Georgia short line as its number 5, where it survives. FT units 601 and 801 through 805 were sold to dealer Harold Gottfried for $155,000 and stored for a while in Erie Lackawanna's Croxton Yards before going to scrap. FTs 806 through 808 went to National Metal and Steel, Terminal Island, California for $63,000 and were scrapped. The F3s fared a bit better with, as we know, 821 A and B units and 822 A and B units moving over to the Erie as their 714 A through D series. And later, Erie Lackawanna 7141-243. And were off the roster by 1966. F3s 501, 503 were sold to the Sacramento Northern as its 301, 303, and were given the flashy orange and silver paint scheme. Number 301 became 301A and was retired in August 1971. 302 became 301 and was traded to Sacramento Northern to parent Western Pacific to EMD. Sacramento Northern 303 was leased to the Western Pacific as its 801D, then regeared for freight service and renumbered 926A, finally retired in 1970. The Sacto Northern had paid $45,000 for each of the O&W units, plus an additional $2,278 each to upgrade them to SN Sacramento Northern Western Pacific standards, which included such things as train radios, repainting, deadman controls, windshield washers, awnings, rear view mirrors, water coolers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As with the O&W steam, there was no O&W diesel transition power, no Jeeps, RS3s, RSs, or other in-between models. The NW2s were disposed of as follows. Numbers 111 through 113 sold to the Kaplan Salzburg and stored on the Unadilla Valley at New Berlin, thought to be destined for the LNNW or the
Louisiana
Northwestern, thank you, Alan, or the St. Johnsbury and Lemoyne, right. And then were sold to the Rock Island as their 795, 797 series. Following the Rock's demise last year, The units were sold with dozens of others to Chrome Crankshaft. 115 sold to the Northern Pacific as second number 99, and then on to the Burlington Northern as 586. One of only two engines originally owned by a non-Burlington Northern entity at the time of the formation of the Burlington Northern. The unit was last known to be operating around the Twin Cities. 114, 116, 131 were sold to the New York Central as their 9500, 9516 series, then on to Penn Central as 8683 through 8699. 118, 120, 127, 128 never made it into Conrail, but those that did were 114, 116, 17, 19, 21 through 26, 29 through 31. And they became Conrail 9263 through 9275. As of the end of 1980, the 123, 130, and 131 had been set aside for retirement, with the 114 assigned to Buffalo, 116 to Baltimore, 17 to Selkirk, 19 to Detroit, 21 to Wilmington, 22 to Juniata, 24 to Selkirk, 25 to DeWitt, Syracuse, 26 to Bavonia, and 29 to Eport, Elizabethport.
So what I'm getting out of all that, to settle the 105 debate totally, we should repaint it as the Salt Lake, Garfield, and
Salt Lake,
Western.
there you
Okay.
go.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, and these came out of the, thank you to Carl for suggesting this, came out of the calendar. I went back last night to find which calendar date when it was. I think these are, coming out of GE 102 through 101 through the 103. The 801. And the NW2s, this is, I believe, up at, this is a Shaughnessy shot from the O&W collection. This is, I believe, up at Kedosia. Okay. Now, these came out of Fred's collection. Again, these had actual descriptions on the back. So I scanned the pictures and then, scanned the rear. So this is at Kedosia NE4. AJ Ralston, trainman, last trip, retired 1956. When employees had pride in what they did and showed it off.
You don't bring in the chocolate, right?
Please, say that again?
That's coming up with Scranton.
Coming off the Scranton Bridge. Sorry, Walt. Yep. Kedosia Trestle coming off the Scranton.
That is the same locomotive as the chocolate.
In the
wrap.
chocolate rack, yeah.
In the chocolate rack. Yep.
Mine diesel for.
Yep. Elwood Warden engineer John Mc something. Maybrook, last run, March 1957. The look on their faces describes it all. The mood has been set.
I don't think that was a voluntary.
That is not a voluntary, yeah. I'm going to skip the first one. Looks like Howard Wakeman, trainman, and George Sayre, trainman, 1955 through 1956. Notice how they dressed back then. Full suit and tie. George Stillman, flagman on the left. George, I'm going to say Bullis, conductor, 1956. And Perry Black, trainman. Veteran, dedicated employees of the O&W. They don't look happy. Actually, Mr. Perry Black sort of has a smile.
He's only 28 years old.
He's only 28 years old. What are you going to do in your retirement? He's not going to Disneyland. Raymond Finch, engineer. Anthony Rupert, fireman. Maybrook of 56.
They could have gone to Disneyland. I think it was 1955 when
Was
it
it?
opened. Yeah.
Okay.
Disneyland. Yeah, not Disney World.
Not Disney World. Yeah, they didn't take the O&W.
No, the Disneyland branch.
The Disney branch, next to the Coney Island branch, same station. Freight platform at Mayfield.
I got the names.
You have the names, okay. This looks like McClaven, McClover,
Farrell's there.
Farrell's there, yep.
Yardmaster.
Harry Osborne and Frank Champion.
You got the YMCA.
Is this Frank over here? Well, are we going like left to right? Okay,
Got the same photo.
okay.
It's in the barrels.
What's in the barrels?
Beer for Rock Tavern, I guess.
Beer for Rock Tavern, Alan says. Actually, the placard is dangerous.
That could still be beer.
That could, well, depending on whose hands it falls in, absolutely. Yep. And it's a Valley car and a Penzi car. Last day operation, car inspector Jim. Jim, it looks like JIM Lawler, car inspector. Engineer Warden at Taylor's Crossing, south of Ferndale on NE4. You don't see too many in-cab perspectives. Elwood Warden, again, engineer. R. William Warden, fireman. I'm assuming they're brothers. Maybrook, the 57, again, the 803.
Look how clean it looks, and it's
Look
the
how
last
clean.
year of the railroad.
Yep. Unlike the Lehigh, New England, they polished, shiny, they took care of their engines. NE4 doing the air test at Mayfield, engineer Warden. He got a lot of pictures taken. 601. To my knowledge, this is what was left in Middletown Yard, AV. You can see the church is up here, so we're definitely looking at Middletown. I don't know if this is last day, but on the back it said Middletown after the end. Again, Middletown Yards after the end, 1957. You can see everything's lined up here, waiting for disposition.
They're looking up the Kingston branch to the Central.
That's what I'm.
Yep.
Elmer had a picture in his book of all the NWs up on the Kingston branch.
Yep. And this is from the other perspective on the other side, Middletown Yards after the closing, 57, 58. Of course, now we know this is gone.
Ooh.
Well, where is this?
Where is this one? This one I have an answer to. This one is labeled as Trout Brook. This is Kadoja. And now this is Middletown. This is Billboard is touting the Middletown Industrial Terminal. Almost looks like it has the MTA insignia over here. And I don't know, it was cut off over here, but it says this is the new home of fill in the blank. You have this one?
Yeah.
Burger King. There you go.
It's like a fireworks, little fireworks stand,
Yeah, it looks like that, or like when they're just building a housing development, they put up the temporary electric service over here, and this is the office.
Huh.
And this is the end of the program almost. 1912, James H.
Would be $20 because it's no fence up there.
It says Preston Park, PA. Waiting for a pusher to get water. It's in the neighborhood, yeah. So that's the end of the program for the slides, negatives. Just a quick reminder again, Saturday, March 30th, the 67th anniversary driving tour, starting at 9 a.m. We meet at the Quickway Diner. That is 68 New York 17K in Bloomingburg. Take your pick of the vehicle you'd like to have your seats on.
The Mountains by Rubber.
To the Mountains by Rubber. Can we get audio back
Yeah.
up?
We're all good.
Can we get it for here? Yes, let's bring up the audio on the projector, Alan.
I don't know if we can.
Oop.
Why?
Because.
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, one more. This is the scenic motor bus tour for Saturday, March 27th of 1965. Notice the trip fare is a total of $7 round trip from New York City going to Kadoja and back.
Can't even get a sandwich.
You can't even get a sandwich that price, right? Exactly.
Across the bridge.
Departing at 8:45, return approximately at 7:30. Whether they made it back on that time schedule or not,
Down the bridge, $16, $17.
something like that. Okay.
Have easy pass.